Good afternoon, it's Simon from Two-Way Digital here. So this is actually take two of this video. So basically I was recording and I noticed all of a sudden that my webcam had frozen and it's basically not transmitting anymore. So I will get rid of those old dodgy videos. We'll just start again on this one. So welcome to today's broadcast again, and it's essentially technical SEO and it's about doorway pages. So in terms of the right way and wrong way to do it, we'll discuss it in a minute. So if you're joining me live still, please say hi again. I'll give you a shout out. And if you're watching on the replay, please feel free to ask any questions at the end. If there's anything you're not sure about, don't understand, or want clarification, I'm more than happy to actually have a chat with you on that subject. Feel free to also join our Facebook group. You'll find that I'll put a link below the video when it's finished, and I shall put in there a link to our Facebook group so you can join in the conversation there if you would like to. So doorway pages, what are they? So doorway pages are also referred to as bridge pages, portal pages, jump pages, gateway pages, or entry pages, whichever way you turn them. They could work for a short time if you create them, but essentially they're against Google's terms of service, kind of. They don't like them, but there are sort of ways around it, and there are situations where actually doorway pages can be okay, and we'll talk about that nearer to the end of the video. Now, what are doorway pages? Why are they created? So they're essentially pages that are created for the sole purpose of attempting to manipulate the search engine indexing algorithm. And essentially, if you get found out, if you get caught doing this, then ultimately that could get you a Google slap. Now, what is a Google slap? So the original terminology Google slap was for Google paid ads, and essentially that was for doing ads badly. I mean, there was lots of different things that you could get a Google slap for, but it basically penalized the reach and it increased the cost on your ads, etc. In terms of organic traffic, obviously we're not paying for ads. We're ranking our content on the search engines, and as I say, the doorway pages are essentially trying to game the algorithm for ranking, and so Google don't like that. Although there are right ways of doing doorway pages, and sometimes you can't really avoid a doorway page, but there are better ways of doing it than the traditional sort of black hat methods of creating them. So how to spot a doorway page essentially is it's mostly where you're trying to optimize for a couple of keywords, and then either you redirect or funnel people towards the same page. So you've got lots of different pages with different keywords all going back to the same piece of original content. Now, there's lots of ways of doing this. There's multiple domains, pages generated to funnel visitors by just going to a relevant portion of your site, and copying the content of a page and just changing a few words and having multiple pages are all sort of forms of doorway pages. And there have been in the past a lot of companies that will just use that method to try and get you ranking. Now, like I say, in the short term, it may work, not necessarily. If they're using large chunks of duplicate content, the Panda update essentially will have nullified that method to a large extent. So if you're trying to use copies of pages that are virtually identical in every way apart from locations or product changes or something similar, it's essentially against Google's terms of service, and it's really not something that you want to be doing at all. So what do you do instead? Well, if doorway pages are essentially against Google terms of service, but you still need to use them because you do genuinely have business where you've got multiple locations offering the same service under the same brand name, then of course you want to show up and rank locally for your business in those areas. So it's reasonable. And if you're optimizing your pages for one area and you've got offices in other areas, you can't rely on them to automatically come up in those areas. You'll get outranked by more local competition, as we know if you've been following along on these videos. So instead of going down the black hat route of multiple domains, redirection, cloaking, links, etc., what you need to do instead is include each of your pages in the hierarchy so that they're navigable, and they should contain original content. So this is the key. Although it could be about the same service in a different area for the same business name and brand, and most other things the same, you might even have central office numbers, etc. If the content's original for the website, the business in that area, and the service, if you've changed it enough so that it doesn't just say the same thing verbatim, and I'm not just talking about swapping around the order of the sentences or the paragraphs, is just rewrite the content so that it's got a high percentage of originality and it's helpful to the user still, and you follow all of the the content creation good practice guidelines. That essentially enables you then to essentially have what is technically a gateway page, but in a way that Google still finds it reasonable and acceptable and won't necessarily penalize you for it. So making sure that you've got a good range of different content for the same services for the different areas is actually one way of getting around that. The other thing is also when you're doing your backlink strategy, so when you're doing your off-page SEO, you actually want to focus on local businesses backlinking to that piece of content, although it's essentially acting like a doorway page or a gateway page because it's on the same site with the same brand name and the same service, but just in a different area. It doesn't mean that you can't create unique, because probably you're going to have different people with slightly different personalities and different experiences in their areas. Bring that into the fold. Give the page a personality. Don't just make it boring and bland and all about the details. Tell stories. Be local, and that way you can actually then get away with having several doorway pages for your business, because they're not just copies, they're not just duplicates with a few minor changes. And that's what Google is essentially trying to avoid, is especially when you get rankings and you've got a page full of all very similar results with all taking you to the same page. That's what they want to avoid. So if you've got good original content that's relevant for your area with good off-page SEO that's really localized for businesses in that area, as a strategy, that's absolutely going to work for you. And I would argue that they're almost not doorway pages in that sense, because they're original content and they're useful, and they're providing a good user experience to the people searching for content in that area. So that's kind of the way of getting around being flagged as having doorway pages, is just stay away from all of those various different black hat methods, which really, if you can get them to work, it's only going to be on a site that has huge amounts of authority. Now, there are sites that do actually do this. I mean, they are large companies, they have lots of authority. They're multi-million-pound companies in most instances, and there are examples of Google actually ranking doorway pages successfully and consistently over long periods of times, even though it's clearly what they are. They're only actually creating those pages for the sake of ranking in a local area. But because they are a big business, they provide a good service at a reasonable price. They've probably got lots of feedback and comment, and around the rest of their site. So a car hire company, for example, might be an example of this. They could rank with lots of doorway pages and not really worry too much about the penalisation side. But as a small local business, you're not going to have that website authority, or that vast range of services, and just the local celebrity, I suppose, for them is more national. So if I was to say to you, I mean, I'm not saying that Hearts do this, I haven't checked, but if Hearts Car Rental, for example, just created a load of doorway pages for loads of different towns and states and counties, whatever, the chances of them being penalised are very small, because they are a big, well-recognised national company. If people see their name, they know what they're getting. They click on it for their area. They'll find the local distribution centres for renting cars, etc., and it would all be good. that gives them a big advantage because they're a big national company, they're a big multi-million-dollar company, they're probably spending a lot on ads anyway. So the chances of them getting away with it are very high. Whereas you as a small local business, if you tried it, far less likely. So you've got to go down the original content route. So is that something that can work for you? Absolutely. Is it worth the extra work? Because it is obviously going to be a lot more work. Yes, absolutely. If you want to create doorway pages for your business in lots of different areas, just remember that it needs to be original, it needs to be unique and helpful, and you need to do your off-page SEO so that it's targeted by local businesses in your local area, and just stick away from all the black hat methods, which again I'll put the link below the video as usual, so that you can go to the blog post and they're listed out in there what you should and should not do for creating essentially pages for services for your business in different areas. So I hope you find this helpful. Doesn't look like anybody's commented. I think they might have not bothered watching again, but because of the slight technical error, so apologies for that, and I will see you on the next video. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day, have a good afternoon, and goodbye for now.